I just want us to go back a bit now, just like from where we are. I feel like we're a bit deep into the struggle. In the history of South Africa, you mentioned the dope or tot system, right? And a lot of the time, when we're in colloquial circles, we will be like, can I'll just have a tot, and people, I never thought of the origins of that expression, yeah, tot, because the tot is like, a thing we use colloquially, like I said, where employers used to get colored workers to perform tasks at an aggressive pace by giving them moderate amounts of alcohol during their shifts. That which may have led to the legacy of alcohol abuse within the colored community. Considering that the system lasted for 200 years, please elaborate on the origins and possible impacts of the affected communities by the DOP system.
Well, it's a huge and devastating impact. I was doing that with regards to research too. When I speak about the ANC flirting with left-wing politics during the 1920s, one of the campaigns which they tried to lead is one in the Western Cape in the 1920s of organising people in the Barrydale area, the sort of wine producing centre. And you see reports for the time when you actually have detail from reporters on the scene about what exactly the DOP system was. From my hazy pre-research idea, I sort of had the idea that it was in lieu of payment. In other words, you'd be paid in wine rather than in a way of shorting your wages. That's one of the explanations which I received. But based on the reports at the time, it was a system which had existed for centuries and where it was basically alcohol being used as an intoxicant. Apparently, it speeds up your ratio of labor if you're intoxicated on the job. Once you become addicted, you become superfluous and somebody else can replace you. So it was a very abusive and exploitative system. And as people are discarded from that labor system, one of the terms which people developed in the 1960s was the Surplus Peoples Project. And it was one of the ways to refer to people who were forced out of so-called white South Africa into the homelands. And I think that those forms of labor exploitation, and it's something which I think manifested itself with the tot system itself, you sort of exploit laborers. Once they're worn out and no longer useful, you sort of discard them into the community and you let the community deal with the social problems. Brutal system, and I think that the coloured community is still dealing with that legacy, and you find traces of it in all sorts of interesting ways. One of these sources which we prescribe as part of our honours class at the University of Pretoria is even after apartheid, well into the new South Africa, when people of the educated middle classes are celebrating the Springboks as being a symbol of rainbow non-racialism. In many areas of rural Western Cape, you have the coloured community who openly, ostentatiously and obnoxiously present themselves as being All Blacks fans. So when the New Zealanders would beat South Africa, they would come out into the streets and make it known that they're celebrating South African defeat. That is a legacy of the bitterness of this legacy of that system of exploitation, that they would view themselves, even after the end of apartheid, as being hostile to their oppressors, and they view their oppressors as being the local wine-owning, farm-owning population. I think you see even traces of that legacy in how the Western Cape voted in the last 2024 elections with regards to who would vote for the Patriotic Alliance and the Coloured People's Congress versus who would vote for the Rainbow Democratic Alliance majority.
That is shocking. That is very shocking. The that the like I said, we use the term tot. We use it like colloquially. It's like something we use to like express a little shot of vodka or whatnot, and we don't think about the history. And now you're saying, you're telling me about the All Blacks thing, and I never I've seen what you're talking about, but I never thought to connect it to this history. So it seems like history plays a huge role on our present circumstance.
That's correct. No, it has legacies. I mean, the past lives into the present. It can never be totally erased. whatever doesn't lead to the death of the species will live on in the species, for want of a better word. In other words, their survivals, continuations, inheritances from the past, which will continue into the present. And that's certainly the case as far as South Africa is concerned. One of the reasons for studying history, you find certain aspects of the present and you ask, where did that come from? How has that survived? And history provides you an entree into that.
And how, like, with that being said, what do you make of people who say, just forget about it? That happened a long time ago. It's history. It doesn't matter anymore. I mean, we're in a new society now. Things have been changed for a while. Now seeing that, you just made this connection to present day South Africa from something that happened in the 20s, right? Ended in the 20s, but happened for 200 years prior to that. What do you make of people who are eager to dispel history as a factor to present day circumstances?
I think that when present day circumstances are unproblematic, I think it leads to ahistorical modes of thinking. I mean, the original term for history as the Greeks developed it was inquiry. Inquiry means looking into things, and I think that refers to problems. And I think that when there are times of apparent stability and calm, nobody wants to look into the causes because, there's the idea that whatever the causes were, the outcomes have been good. But I think history is always motivated by an idea to probe more deeply into where did things come from in order to understand better where might they be going. It's a product of confusion. And I think it's always inevitable. You have these fluctuations where there'll be people interested in inquiring into the causes of things and periods where they will be indifferent to that. And I do think that the discipline of history is experienced those peaks and troughs. I think after 1994, there was a trough, but I think that there's an increasing appetite for history in the country. I mean, when I entered the profession in the first decade of this millennium, the people were still speaking of the crisis of history in terms of the numbers of people who were taking up the subject. I think, if anything, we're at the other extreme now where we're struggling to cope with the numbers in many institutions, and this is even before people are speaking about making it compulsory as a subject.